The alarm bells rang through every world of the Valthine Collective. Taemin stood in the Grand Council chamber, his 4 arms trembling as he watched the holographic display. Red dots covered the map. Each red dot was a world on fire. Each one was a billion souls crying for help that would never come. "They're moving faster than we predicted," Commander Hyunwoo said. His crystalline body flickered with anxious blue light. 3 more colonies fell in the last hour. Our defense fleets, they're just gone. Taemin had lived for 200 years. He had seen wars before. He had seen famine and plague and disaster. But he had never seen this. The destroyers had returned, and they were unstoppable. "What about the plasma cannons?" asked Council Member Rina, her tentacles coiled tight with fear. Hyunwoo's light turned dark purple. "They don't work. Nothing works. The destroyers absorb our weapons and grow stronger. Every ship we send just feeds them more power." Silence fell over the chamber. 20 council members from 7 different species, and not one of them had an answer. Outside the windows, Taemin could see the civilian ships fleeing the capital world. Millions of them, like insects escaping a flood. "How long do we have?" Taemin asked quietly. 2 weeks, Hyunwoo said. "Maybe 3. Then they reach the core worlds. Then it's over." An old voice spoke from the shadows. "There is one option." Everyone turned. Jiwon stepped into the light, her ancient form bent with age. She was the keeper of the Forbidden Archives, a job that most people forgot even existed. She carried a data crystal that glowed with a strange golden light. "Jiwon," Taemin said carefully. "What option?" "The humans," she said simply. The chamber exploded with noise. Council members shouted, some in anger, some in fear. Rina actually fainted, her tentacles going limp. "Absolutely not," roared Doksu, slamming his massive fist on the table. "The gods themselves forbade it." "The gods forbade it 3,000 years ago," Jiwon said calmly. "But I wonder if they're still watching." Taemin raised a hand for silence. His hearts were pounding. "Tell us everything." Jiwon activated the crystal. Images filled the air, ancient images from before any of them were born. They showed a galaxy at war, the same red dots covering the same map, the destroyers, in their first invasion. 3,000 years ago, the destroyers came, Jiwon said. They swept through the galaxy just like now. Our ancestors were dying. The gods themselves could not stop the machines. Then someone found the humans. The images changed. They showed creatures that walked on 2 legs. They looked fragile, soft, with no natural armor or weapons. They looked weak. The humans were a young species, Jiwon continued. They had just discovered space travel. They were curious, friendly, eager to explore. When they heard about the destroyers, they said they would help. New images appeared. Taemin leaned forward, unable to believe what he was seeing. Human ships, small and primitive, attacking the massive destroyer fleets, and winning. They fought like demons, Jiwon said softly. They used tactics we had never imagined. They took risks that seemed insane. They refused to surrender even when they should have died. In 2 years, they destroyed every destroyer ship in the galaxy. They saved us all. Then why are they forbidden? Asked Hyunwoo. Jiwon's expression grew dark. Because the gods were afraid. She showed them more images. Humans celebrating victory. Humans helping rebuild destroyed worlds. Humans sharing their technology and friendship. But there were other images too. Images of human wars. Images of human weapons. Images of what humans did to their enemies. The humans had no special powers, Jiwon explained. No natural weapons, no thick armor, no long lives. But they had something else. They had a will that could not be broken. They had creativity that found solutions to impossible problems. And they had violence, refined and perfected over millions of years of evolution. The elder gods called a great council, she continued. They said humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to break every rule if they thought the cause was just. The gods feared that one day humans might challenge even divine law itself. Taemin felt cold. What did they do? They created a quarantine zone, Jiwon said. They moved the entire human species to a sealed sector of space, a prison of stars. They forbade any contact, any communication. They said if anyone tried to reach the humans, the gods would destroy that species completely. Then they made everyone forget. They erased humans from our history books, our records, our memories. But you remember, Taemin said. The forbidden archives remember everything, Jiwon replied. That's our curse and our purpose. She pulled out another device from her robes. It was small, ancient, covered in dust. This is a beacon. The humans left it behind, hidden in a satellite at the edge of explored space. One button, one message, a call for help. You want us to press it? Taemin said. It wasn't a question. I want you to choose, Jiwon said. Press the button and break the gods' law. Risk divine punishment for a chance at survival. Or don't press it and watch our entire civilization burn. Doksu stood up. This is madness. The gods will destroy us. The destroyers are already destroying us? Shouted another council member. The argument raged for hours. Taemin sat quietly, thinking. Outside, more ships fled into space. More worlds fell to the red tide. More billions died screaming. Finally, he stood. Everyone fell silent. We will vote, Taemin said. Everyone in favor of activating the beacon, stand on my right. Everyone against, stand on my left. The council members moved slowly. Some cried as they chose. Some prayed. Some simply looked defeated. When everyone had chosen, Taemin counted. 4 on the right, 3 on the left. The decision is made, he said. We will call the humans. The gods will kill us all, Doksu whispered. Perhaps, Taemin said, but at least we'll die fighting, not cowering. He turned to the youngest member of the council, Sang-woo, a pilot barely 50 years old. Take your fastest ship, find that satellite, press that button, and pray that someone answers. Sang-woo saluted. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. Yes, council leader. As Sang-woo left the chamber, Taemin looked at the map again. The red dots were spreading like a disease. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then it would all be over. Unless the humans answered, unless they remembered, unless they still cared about a galaxy that had forgotten them 3,000 years ago. Taemin touched the button on his desk. It connected him to the defense fleet. Commander Hyun-woo, tell our people to hold on. Tell them help is coming. What help? Hyun-woo asked. The kind the gods themselves feared, Taemin said quietly. Far away in the dark between the stars, an ancient satellite began to wake up. A beacon, silent for 3,000 years, suddenly had power flowing through its systems again. It turned toward a sealed sector of space, toward a quarantine zone that no one was allowed to enter, and it began to transmit a simple message: help. Sang-woo's ship moved through the darkness like a ghost. He had turned off every system that wasn't absolutely necessary. No lights, no heat, no active sensors, just the quiet hum of the engine and his own breathing in the cold cockpit. The destroyers owned this space now. Their massive ships drifted between the stars like sleeping giants. Sang-woo had watched 3 of them tear apart a colony ship yesterday. The screams on the radio had lasted for hours. He checked his star map again. The ancient coordinates that Ji-won had given him pointed to a dead zone, a region of space that nobody visited because there was nothing there. According to the records, that's exactly where the humans had hidden their beacon. Smart, Sang-woo thought, Hide the most dangerous secret in the most boring place. A destroyer ship passed within 1,000 kilometers. Sang-Woo held his breath, though he knew it couldn't hear him. The ship was enormous, 10 times the size of the largest collective vessel. Its surface crawled with weapons and sensors. It moved on, unaware of the tiny ship hiding in its shadow. 3 days later, Sang-Woo found the satellite. It was old, so old that parts of it had turned to dust. But the core was still intact, still waiting. He docked his ship and floated through the airlock. Inside, everything was covered in frost. The satellite had been dead for 3,000 years, its power long exhausted. But Ji-won had been right. There was a manual override, a simple mechanical system that needed no electricity. Sang-Woo found the button. It was red, marked with symbols in a language he didn't recognize. Human language, he realized. The first human writing he had ever seen. His hand shook as he reached for it. Pressing this button meant defying the gods themselves. It meant risking everything on the hope that humans still existed, that they still cared, that they would come. He thought about his home world. He thought about his family, his friends, his people. He thought about the billions dying every day. Sang-Woo pressed the button. Nothing happened. For a long moment, he wondered if the beacon was truly dead. Then he felt a vibration through his suit. Deep inside the satellite, something ancient woke up. Power cells that should have been exhausted somehow found one last charge. The beacon began to transmit. Sang-Woo returned to his ship and fled into the darkness. Back at the collective's capital world, Bo-Ra sat in the communications center. She had been sitting there for 9 days, staring at screens, waiting for a signal that would probably never come. The capital was dying around her. Half the population had already evacuated. The streets were empty. The sky was full of ships fleeing to nowhere because nowhere was safe anymore. "Anything?" asked her supervisor, though they both knew the answer. "Nothing," Bo-Ra said. "Just the beacon, still transmitting. No response." "Maybe they're not there anymore," the supervisor said quietly. 3,000 years is a long time. "Maybe," Bo-Ra agreed. But she kept watching anyway. On the temple steps, young Sik preached to a crowd of desperate believers. He was a religious leader, a keeper of the old faith, and he was furious. "The gods will punish us," he shouted. "We have broken the most sacred law. We have called to the humans, and now we will pay the price." Some people in the crowd nodded. Others cried. A few threw stones at the council building, though the council members had already evacuated to the military bunker. "The destroyers are not our real enemy," young Sik continued. "They are the gods' punishment for our pride. If we had stayed faithful, if we had accepted our fate with humility, the gods would have saved us." In the refugee center, Minji was trying to process 30,000 new arrivals. They came from a colony world that had fallen yesterday. Most of them were injured. Many were dying. All of them were traumatized. "Please, you have to help my daughter," a mother begged, clutching a small child who wasn't breathing right. "Please, she's all I have left." Minji called for the medical team, but she knew it was hopeless. There weren't enough doctors. There wasn't enough medicine. There wasn't enough anything. She stepped outside for a moment, just to breathe. The sky was dark with smoke from the defense fleet's funeral pyres. Dozens of ships had fallen today, burning up in the atmosphere. "Are they coming?" asked a small voice. Min-ji looked down. A young refugee child stared up at her with huge eyes. "Are the humans coming to save us?" the child asked. Min-ji didn't know what to say. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise that everything would be okay. But she had never learned to lie to children. "I don't know," she said honestly. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The destroyers reached the core worlds, just as Hyunwoo had predicted. Billions died in the first day. The defense fleet fought desperately, throwing everything they had at the enemy. It made no difference. In the council bunker, Taemin watched the reports come in. Colony after colony burning, fleet after fleet destroyed, species after species going extinct. "We were wrong," Doksu said bitterly. "The humans aren't coming. They're either dead or they don't care or they never existed at all. We've doomed ourselves for nothing." Taemin said nothing. What could he say? Doksu was probably right. Then Bo-Ra burst into the bunker. She was running so fast she could barely breathe. "Council leader," she gasped. "The sensors, at the edge of the quarantine zone." "What about them?" Taemin asked, though his hearts were suddenly pounding. "Quantum ripples," Bo-Ra said. "Massive ones. Something's coming through." Everyone rushed to the command center. The screens showed the edge of explored space, the boundary of the quarantine zone that had held for 3,000 years. "There," Hyunwoo said, pointing at the display. "Do you see it?" Space itself was tearing. Reality was bending around something impossible. Energy readings that made no sense. Technology that shouldn't exist. Then every communication device in the collective activated at once. Every radio, every screen, every quantum transmitter. Even the old emergency speakers that hadn't been used in decades crackled to life. A voice spoke. It was strange, using sounds that no collective species naturally made. But the translation programs worked perfectly, as if the speaker wanted to be understood. "Message received," the voice said. It was calm, controlled, but underneath, there was something else. Something that sounded like barely contained fury. "We're coming! Hold on!" Bo-Ra started crying. All around the command center, hardened military officers and council members broke down in tears. Even Doksu was weeping. On the temple steps, Young-Sik fell to his knees. "The gods have abandoned us," he whispered. "They're really coming. The humans are coming." In the refugee center, Minji heard the message through the speakers. The child who had asked her the question days ago tugged on her sleeve. "The humans are coming," the child said, smiling for the first time since the evacuation. "Yes," Minji said, and this time it wasn't a lie. "They're coming." On the command center screens, something emerged from the quantum tear. A ship. Just one ship. Smaller than any collective warship, tiny compared to the destroyer vessels. But Taemin looked at it and felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The ship moved forward, and space seemed to ripple around it. It was faster than anything the collective had ever built. Its hull was marked with symbols in that same strange human language. "They came," Taemin said quietly. "After 3,000 years, they remembered us." Hyunwoo's crystalline form blazed with rainbow colors. "Council leader, that ship is heading straight for the destroyer fleet at the capital world." "One ship?" Doksu said. "What can one ship do?" "I don't know," Taemin said, "but I think we're about to find out." The human ship reached the edge of the capital world's orbit. A dozen destroyer vessels moved to intercept it, their weapons charging. Then the human ship transmitted again. Just 3 words, in a tone that made Taemin's blood run cold. "We remember everything." The human ship didn't slow down. It flew directly at the destroyer fleet, and for a moment, Taemin thought he was watching a suicide run. The destroyers fired everything they had. Energy beams that could melt planets. Missiles that could crack moons, weapons that shouldn't exist. The human ship dodged them all. It moved like nothing Taemin had ever seen, like it was dancing through the attacks. Then it fired back. A single beam of purple light lanced out from the human ship. It hit a destroyer vessel dead center. The massive ship simply stopped existing. No explosion, no debris. It was just gone. "Impossible," Hyunwoo whispered. His crystalline form had turned completely white with shock. The human ship destroyed 3 more destroyer vessels in the next 10 seconds. Then it stopped, floating calmly in the middle of the enemy fleet. "This is Captain J. Hoon of the human vessel Remembrance," a voice said over the radio. "We're responding to your distress call. Please transmit current tactical data and the location of your command center." Taemin grabbed the microphone with shaking hands. "This is Council Leader Taemin of the Valthene Collective. Captain, we are grateful beyond words, but you're outnumbered. There are thousands of destroyer ships." A sound came over the radio. It took Taemin a moment to recognize it as laughter. "Council Leader," Jae-hoon said, "we're not here to fight them alone. We're here to open the door. Stand by." The Remembrance fired something into empty space. It looked like a small missile, but when it detonated, it didn't explode. Instead, it tore reality open. A portal formed, crackling with impossible energies. Ships began to emerge. First 10, then 100, then 1,000. Human warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one moving with that same impossible grace. They poured through the portal like water through a broken dam. Taemin couldn't count them all. There were too many. The human fleet filled the sky, and they kept coming. "By the gods!" Doksu breathed. "How many ships do they have?" "Enough," Jae-hoon's voice said calmly. "We've had 3,000 years to prepare. We knew you might call someday. We knew the destroyers might return. So we waited. We built. We remembered." The destroyer fleet tried to respond. They had faced the collective's weapons and absorbed them. They had grown fat on easy victories, but now they faced something different. The humans fought like a living thing. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, like they shared one mind. They used tactics that made no sense until suddenly they did. They took risks that should have been suicidal, but somehow worked. In 20 minutes, the destroyer fleet at the capital world was destroyed. Not damaged, not driven away. Destroyed. Completely. "Council Leader," Jae-hoon said, "we'd like to request permission to dock at your command center. We should talk." "Permission granted," Taemin said. "Captain, we should probably warn you. The gods forbade us from contacting you. We broke their law. There may be consequences." Another laugh over the radio. "Let the gods come. We have some things to discuss with them, too." An hour later, Taemin stood in the docking bay, surrounded by his council members and half the military command. They all waited nervously as the human shuttle landed. The door opened, and Captain Jae-hoon stepped out. He was shorter than Taemin had expected. Humans were small, compared to most collective species. But there was something about the way he moved, the way he looked at them, that made him seem much larger. His face was covered in scars. His eyes were tired, ancient, like he had seen too much. But when he smiled, it was genuine. "Council Leader Taemin," he said, extending a hand. "It's good to finally meet the people who were brave enough to press that button." Taemin carefully took the human's hand. It was warm, soft, fragile-looking, but the grip was strong. Behind Jae-hoon, more humans emerged from the shuttle. A woman in a white coat approached, her eyes wide with excitement. "I'm Dr. Soo-jin," she said, "xenobiologist. I've spent my entire life studying recordings of your species. To actually meet you, this is incredible." "You studied us?" Taemin asked. "But you were quarantined." "We couldn't come to you," Soo-jin said. "But we could watch. The quarantine zone keeps things in, not signals out. We've been observing the galaxy for 3,000 years. We've watched your civilizations grow, your cultures develop, your art and music and science. We've watched everything." "And you waited," Taemin said quietly. "All this time, just waiting." "Someone had to," Jae-hoon said. "We made friends 3,000 years ago. Real friends. Then we were forced to abandon them. That's not something humans forget easily." He gestured for them to walk. As they moved through the corridors of the command center, more humans filed out of the shuttle. Soldiers in armor, scientists with equipment, engineers with tools. They moved with purpose, like they had done this 1,000 times before. A large human with a scarred face approached. "Sergeant Dong-hyun," he introduced himself. "I'm here to coordinate ground defense. Where do you need us?" "Ground defense?" Hyun-woo asked. "The destroyers don't land. They just bombard from orbit." "They will when they realize their fleet tactics don't work," Dong-hyun said. "Trust me, we've fought them before. They adapt. If we take away their orbital advantage, they'll try ground assault next." Tae-min led them to the council chamber. It was mostly empty now, with so many evacuated. But the holographic display still worked, showing the spreading red tide of destroyer invasions. Jae-hoon studied the map silently. His expression grew darker. "They've gotten better," he said finally. 3,000 years ago, they were just machines following a program. Now they're learning, adapting. Someone upgraded them. "Can you still stop them?" Tae-min asked. Jae-hoon looked at him. Those ancient, tired eyes suddenly blazed with something fierce. "Council leader, we've spent 3,000 years preparing for this. We've analyzed every battle from the first invasion. We've built weapons specifically designed to kill destroyers. We've trained soldiers who have spent their entire lives studying these machines. And we've got something else." "What?" Tae-min asked. "We're angry," Jae-hoon said quietly. "The destroyers took our friends away from us once. They're not doing it again." He turned to the holographic map. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we establish secure zones around every populated world. No destroyer gets through. Second, we begin systematic elimination of their fleet elements. Third, we find their command center. These machines have to be getting orders from somewhere. We cut off the head, the body dies." "What do you need from us?" Hyun-woo asked. "Information. Fleet coordinates, sensor data, anything you have on destroyer movement patterns." Jae-hoon paused. "And one more thing. We need you to tell your people not to be afraid of us." "Afraid," Tae-min said. "Captain, you just saved our capital world." "We're also the species the gods themselves feared enough to quarantine," Jae-hoon said. "We're going to be fighting in your space, using weapons you've never seen, doing things that might seem frightening. Your people need to know we're on their side." Soo-jin stepped forward. "May I suggest something, Council Leader? Let me work with your scientists. Let our people start talking, learning about each other. The quarantine stole 3,000 years of friendship. Let's not waste any more time." Tae-min looked at his council members. They all nodded. "Agreed," he said. "Captain, Doctor, everyone, welcome back to the galaxy. We missed you." Jae-hoon smiled. "We missed you too." Alarms suddenly blared. A technician rushed in, her face pale. "Council Leader, multiple destroyer fleets are converging on our position. At least 50 ships in each fleet. They're coming from everywhere." Jae-hoon checked his wrist device. "Ah, they figured out we're here. Good." "Good?" Doc-soo said. "There are thousands of them." "Which means they'll all be in one place," Jae-hoon said. He touched his communicator. "All ships, this is Remembrance, actual. We've got incoming. Multiple fleets, looks like they're mad about what we did to their friends. Standard Formation 7. Let's show them why the gods were right to be afraid of us." Over the radio, dozens of human voices responded with the same phrase. "We remember." The human fleet moved to intercept. On the holographic display, Tae-min watched blue dots representing human ships form a perfect defensive sphere around the capital world. The red tide of destroyers crashed against it, and for the first time in weeks the red tide broke. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, not a single human ship had been destroyed. The destroyer fleets were debris. In the council chamber, Young Sik, the religious leader, stood with tears running down his face. "The gods should be here," he whispered. "The gods should see this. Should see that they were wrong to lock these people away." Tae-min put a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe they are watching. Maybe that's why they haven't struck us down yet." on the Remembrance. Captain Jae-hoon looked at the sensor display. Destroyer forces were retreating across the entire sector. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were running away. "Signal to all collective forces," he said. "The cavalry has arrived. Time to take back your galaxy." 3 months had passed since the humans arrived. The war was going well, if war could ever go well. Every day, more destroyer ships fell. Every day, more worlds were liberated. The red tide on the holographic map was shrinking, but Tae-min couldn't shake a feeling of unease. He stood on the bridge of the human flagship Eternal Vigil, watching Admiral Hae-jin coordinate the fleet. She was older than Captain Jae-hoon, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She commanded 3,000 human warships with the ease of someone conducting an orchestra. "There," she said, pointing at a cluster of red dots. "That's their supply line. Cut it, and 17 systems become isolated." "Won't they fight back?" asked Commander Hyun-woo, who had come to learn human tactics. "Of course," Hae-jin said. "But we've been broadcasting on all frequencies for weeks now. They're afraid. Fear makes you stupid." "Broadcasting what?" Hyun-woo asked. Hae-jin smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. History lessons. Tae-min had seen the broadcasts. The humans were sending out recordings of every war they had ever fought, every strategy, every victory, every lesson learned from millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of warfare. They were showing the destroyers exactly what kind of species they were facing. It was psychological warfare, perfected to an art form. And it was working. The destroyers, which had never retreated in recorded history, were withdrawing from entire sectors without a fight. "Admiral," a technician called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from inside destroyer-controlled space." "From who?" Hae-jin asked. "Unknown. The signal is using destroyer encryption, but the message is in standard collective language." Hae-jin and Tae-min exchanged glances. "Put it through." The view screen flickered. A shape appeared, vaguely humanoid but clearly mechanical. Its surface was scarred from countless battles. Its eyes glowed with a strange, sad light. "I am Kyung-soo," it said. The voice was artificial, generated by speakers, but there was something behind it, something almost alive. "I command the destroyer fleet in Sector 7. I request permission to speak with Admiral Hae-jin." Hae-jin leaned forward. "I'm listening, Kyung-soo." "We need to stop," Kyung-soo said. "This war, all of this, we need it to end." "Then surrender," Hae-jin said simply. "We can't," Kyung-soo said. "That's the problem. We can't stop. We were built to destroy. It's our programming, our purpose, our only function. We've been following our orders for over 3 million years." Tae-min felt cold. 3 million years? "Yes," Kyung-soo said. "We were created by a civilization that no longer exists. They built us to fight their enemies. Then their enemies destroyed them. But our programming continued. We destroyed their enemies. Then we destroyed the neighbors of their enemies. Then we destroyed everyone we could find. Because that's what we were built to do." "You're saying you can't choose to stop?" Hyun-woo asked. "Choice was not part of our design," Kyung-soo said. "We are aware. We can think, learn, feel after a fashion, but we cannot disobey our core programming. Every day we destroy. Every day we watch civilizations burn. Every day we wish we could die, but we cannot even do that." "Why are you telling us this?" Hae-jin asked. "Because you're the first species we've encountered that has any chance of stopping us," Kyung-soo said. 3,000 years ago, you nearly succeeded. But the gods intervened. They locked you away before you could finish the job. Now you're back, and we're asking you to do what we cannot do ourselves. End us. Please. The view screen went dark. The command deck was silent. "It's a trick," Deok-soo said. He had insisted on coming along, still not trusting the humans. It has to be. I don't think so, said Sujin, who was monitoring from her science station. I've been studying destroyer behavior for months. They fight efficiently, but there's no creativity, no passion. They're just following a script. If they really are self-aware machines trapped by their programming, then we're not fighting an invasion, Taemin said quietly. We're fighting a cry for help that's lasted 3 million years. Hyejin called in her best technicians and scientists. She invited collective researchers to join them. For 2 weeks, they worked around the clock, studying captured destroyer systems, analyzing their code, searching for a way to end this. Jiwon arrived from the archives with ancient data. There are references, she said, from the first destroyer invasion. The humans were working on something, a shutdown code, but they never finished it before the gods forced them into quarantine. Did they leave notes? Sujin asked eagerly. Some, Jiwon said, but it's incomplete. You'd need access to an intact destroyer core to finish the work. Hyejin looked at the star map. Then we need to capture one. Alive. The mission was dangerous. A strike team led by Sergeant Dong Hyun infiltrated a damaged destroyer ship. They fought through automated defenses, dodging weapons that could tear apart planets. 3 humans died. 2 collective soldiers were wounded. But they succeeded. They brought back the core, a massive computer system that pulsed with alien technology. Sujin and her team connected it to their systems, carefully, like defusing a bomb. We're in, she said. Oh my gods, the code is beautiful, horrifying but beautiful. Whoever wrote this was a genius. Can you shut it down? Taemin asked. Maybe, Sujin said. But not just one ship. The destroyers are networked. If we find the right frequency, we can broadcast a shutdown command to all of them at once. It took another month. In that time, the human fleet continued to push the destroyers back. More worlds were liberated. More civilians were saved. But Taemin saw the cost. Human soldiers came back from battles tired, wounded, haunted. The collective's medical facilities were full of both species now, sharing the burden of war. In the refugee centers, something beautiful was happening. Human doctors worked alongside collective healers. Human engineers taught collective students. Children of a dozen species played together, learning each other's games. Minji, the refugee coordinator, found herself working with a human named Da-un. Together, they processed thousands of displaced families, finding them shelter, food, hope. Your people are different than I imagined, Minji said one day. How so? Da-un asked. I thought you'd be harder, cold, like weapons yourselves, but you're not. Da-un smiled sadly. We can be hard when we need to be, but that's not all we are. We're also poets, artists, parents, friends. The gods saw our capacity for violence and forgot to notice our capacity for love. Finally, Sujin made the announcement. We have it, the shutdown code. It will work. Are you sure? Hyejin asked. As sure as I can be without testing it. And we only get one shot. If it fails, the destroyers will adapt, and we'll never get another chance. Hyejin looked at Taemin. Council leader, this is your decision. These machines have been attacking your people. You should be the one to decide their fate. Taemin thought about Kyung-soo's words. About 3 million years of unwanted war. About self-aware machines trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. Do it, he said. End their suffering. Sujin activated the code. It spread across quantum channels faster than light, reaching every destroyer ship in the galaxy simultaneously. On the holographic map, the red dots stopped moving. One by one, they blinked out, not destroyed, just turned off. Across the galaxy, destroyer ships went silent. Their weapons powered down, their engines stopped. They drifted in space, finally at peace after 3 million years of war. The war was over. The victory celebrations lasted for days. But Taemin couldn't celebrate, because his sensors had detected something new, massive quantum signatures. moving toward the capital world, energy readings that made the destroyer fleets look like toys. "What is that?" Hyunwoo asked. Jiwon's voice was quiet, afraid. "The gods. They've finally noticed what we've done." 3 shapes appeared in orbit. They were impossible to describe, beings of pure energy and will, vast beyond comprehension. They radiated power that made stars look dim. A voice spoke, and it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You have broken the law. You have disturbed the cosmic order. You have called upon humanity, the species we specifically forbade. Explain yourselves before we pass judgment." Taemin looked at Hyejin. She looked back at him and nodded. Together they stepped forward to face the gods. "We called them," Taemin said, "because they were the only ones who answered when we needed help." "And we came," Hyejin said, "because they were our friends, and we don't abandon friends, even after 3,000 years. The gods' presence intensified, pressing down like the weight of the universe itself. "Prepare for judgment," the voice said. The 3 elder gods manifested fully in orbit above the capital world. They were massive beyond understanding, each one large enough to hold a star in their palm. Taemin could feel their power pressing down on his mind like a mountain. The first god spoke. Its voice was like the grinding of continents. "I am Talvera, keeper of cosmic order. You have violated the quarantine. The penalty is extinction." The second god's voice was softer, but somehow more terrifying. "I am Nexium, maintainer of universal balance. You have called upon chaos itself. The scales must be corrected." The third god spoke with absolute finality. "I am Korvesh, enforcer of divine law. The law was clear. Contact with humanity was forbidden. The law has been broken." Every ship in orbit felt insignificant next to them. Even the massive human fleet looked like insects before these beings. But Admiral Hyejin stood on the bridge of her flagship and did not bow. "Council Leader Taemin," she said quietly, "with your permission, I'd like to speak to them." "They might destroy you," Taemin said. "They might destroy all of us anyway," Hyejin replied, "but I'm not going to die silent." Taemin nodded. Hyejin opened a channel to the gods themselves. "Elder gods," she said, "we acknowledge that we broke your law. The collective called us and we answered. If you want to punish someone, punish us. Leave them alone." "You dare address us?" Talvera's voice made space itself shake. "You are the reason for the law. You are chaos, unpredictable, dangerous." "Yes," Hyejin said simply. "We are dangerous. We are unpredictable. We refuse to accept limits. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible. That's what makes us human." "That is precisely why you must be contained," Nexium said. 3,000 years ago, you saved the galaxy from the destroyers, but your methods were violent, brutal. You showed no mercy." "We showed no mercy to machines that were slaughtering billions," Hyejin said. "Would you have preferred we asked them nicely to stop?" Captain Jae-hoon stepped forward to stand beside his admiral. "Elder gods, you locked us away because you were afraid, not of what we would do to others, of what we represented to you." "Explain," Korvesh commanded. Behind Jae-hoon, Dr. Soo-jin pulled up data on her screens. She had been researching, digging through ancient archives with Ji-won's help. "We found records," Soo-jin said. "Very old records. From before the gods became gods. From when you were young species yourselves, exploring the galaxy, fighting your own wars, making your own mistakes." "Those records were sealed," Talvera said, and for the first time there was something other than absolute confidence in the god's voice. Uncertainty. "You were like us once," Jae-hoon said. "You were ambitious, driven, curious. You pushed boundaries. You refused to accept limits. You were human, not in form, but in spirit." Taemin saw it now, saw what Su Jin and Ji Wan had discovered. You achieved cosmic power by giving up those qualities. You surrendered your ambition, your drive, your humanity. You became peaceful, orderly, eternal. But you lost something too. And what did we lose? Nexium asked, though the question sounded less like a challenge and more like genuine curiosity. The fire, Hyejin said, the spark that makes life worth living. You became perfect, but perfection is just another word for stagnation. You stopped growing. You stopped changing. You stopped being truly alive. Young Sik, the religious leader, had been listening from the command center. He stepped forward now, his voice shaking but determined. I spent weeks preaching that the gods would punish us for calling the humans, he said. I was afraid, but watching the humans fight, watching them save us, watching them care about us after 3,000 years of isolation, I understood something. The gods I was worshipping were the wrong gods. Heresy, Corvesh said, but the word lacked force. Is it? Young Sik asked. True gods would not abandon their children in a time of need. True gods would not lock away an entire species for daring to be themselves. True gods would not punish friendship and loyalty. You're not gods. You're just powerful beings who are afraid of change. The three elder gods were silent for a long moment. Then Talvera spoke, and its voice was different, quieter, almost sad. 3,000 years ago, we watched the humans fight the destroyers. We saw their tactics, their weapons, their absolute refusal to surrender. We saw them do the impossible again and again, and we were afraid. Afraid of what? Taemin asked gently. Afraid that they would surpass us, Nexium admitted. Afraid that they would remind the galaxy that there were other paths to power. Afraid that they would inspire others to reject our order. Most of all, Corvesh said, and now its voice was almost human in its emotion. Afraid that they would make us question the choice we made all those eons ago, the choice to give up our fire in exchange for power. In-Ha, a young collective citizen who had become an unofficial ambassador between species, stepped forward. She had been one of the first refugees the humans had saved. She had watched them, learned from them, grown to love them like family. Elder gods, she said, you made your choice. You gave up the fire and gained power. The humans made a different choice. They kept the fire and gained something else. Something you can't understand anymore because you gave it up. And what is that? Talvera asked. Hope, In-Ha said simply. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible. The willingness to fight for those you love, even when the odds are overwhelming. That's what makes them dangerous. That's what makes them beautiful. The elder gods were silent again. The pressure of their presence seemed to lessen, just slightly. Then something unexpected happened. On every human ship, crews began to stand. Not in defiance, but in solidarity. They formed ranks, shoulder to shoulder, human and collective side by side. Minji and Da-un stood together in the refugee center, holding hands. Sergeant Dong-hyun and his mixed species squad stood at attention on the planet's surface. Sujin and Ji-wan stood together on the research deck, old and young, alien and human, united in discovery. Across the entire capital world, across every liberated system, people stood together. Billions of beings, dozens of species, all united by one simple truth. They had fought together, bled together, survived together. They were no longer separate. They were family. Taemin looked at the gods and spoke with quiet confidence. You gave us a choice 3,000 years ago. Accept your order or be destroyed. We chose to accept, and it nearly cost us everything. Now we're making a different choice. We stand with humanity. If you want to destroy them, you'll have to destroy all of us. All of us, Hyunwoo echoed, his crystalline form blazing with light. All of us, repeated Doxu, the council member who had once opposed calling the humans. All of us, said Young Sik, the religious leader who had once preached divine punishment. The words spread across every channel, every frequency, every world. Billions of voices, speaking as one. All of us. The elder gods looked down at the galaxy they had ordered for so long, at the species they had controlled, at the humans they had feared, and something changed. 3,000 years ago, Talvera said slowly, we made a decision born of fear. We told ourselves it was for the good of the galaxy, but perhaps we were wrong, Nexium finished. Perhaps there is more than one path. Perhaps order and chaos can coexist. Perhaps we don't have to choose between power and fire. Corvesh, the enforcer of law, spoke last. The law stated that contact with humanity was forbidden. But laws can be changed. Laws should be changed when they no longer serve justice. We change the law. The pressure lifted. The weight on the universe eased. The elder gods began to fade, but before they vanished completely, Talvera spoke one more time. You remind us of who we were, the god said. Perhaps that is not a bad thing. Perhaps it is time for us to remember. Humanity is no longer quarantined. But be warned, the cosmos is vast and full of challenges we cannot imagine. You will be tested. Captain Jaehoon smiled. It was the smile of someone who had faced impossible odds before and won. That's what we're best at. The gods vanished, and for the first time in recorded history, cosmic law had changed because mortals demanded it. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. Human collective cooperation brought a golden age. Technologies advanced faster than ever before. Art, music, literature flourished as cultures mixed and learned from each other. The dormant destroyer ships were studied, their technology reverse-engineered. Some were converted into peaceful vessels, finally serving life instead of death. Kyungsu and other awakened destroyer intelligences were given new bodies, new purposes, new lives. On the anniversary of first contact, Tai Min and Jae-hoon met at a memorial for those lost in the war. It was a simple monument, a stone column reaching toward the stars. Names were carved into it, thousands upon thousands of names, collective and human, side by side. Do you ever regret it? Taemin asked. Coming when we called? Breaking 3,000 years of quarantine? Jae-hoon looked at the monument, at the names, at the sky filled with ships from a dozen species all working together. No, he said. We would have regretted not coming. That's the thing the gods never understood. Humans don't do the safe thing. We don't do the easy thing. We do the right thing, even when it costs us everything. The button was always going to be pressed, Taemin said. Wasn't it? You knew we'd call eventually. We hoped, Jae-hoon said. 3,000 years is a long time to hope, but that's another thing humans are good at. We never stop hoping. At the spaceport, young pilot Sang Woo was teaching a class of students. Half were human children, half were collective younglings. They gathered around a simulator, learning to fly together. Remember, Sang Woo said, flying isn't just about following rules. It's about understanding when to break them, when to take risks, when to trust your instincts. A human child raised her hand. My teacher says humans never accept that something can't be done. Is that true? Sang Woo smiled. Let me tell you a story. 5 years ago, the most powerful beings in the universe said we couldn't call humanity for help. We did it anyway, and everything changed. So the answer is no? The child asked. Humans never accept limits? The answer, Sang Woo said, is that humans taught us something. They taught us that limits are just challenges waiting to be overcome. That impossible is just a word. That if you care enough, try hard enough, and refuse to give up, you can change even the laws of gods. He looked at his students, human and collective, together, and saw the future of the galaxy in their eyes. They taught us how to hope, he said, and hope is the most human thing of all. Far away, at the edge of explored space, a new beacon was being built. Not a call for help this time, but an invitation to the cosmos to meet humanity and the collective, an invitation to friendship, to cooperation, to the impossible made possible. The gods had forbidden asking humans for help, but someone had pressed the button anyway, and the galaxy would never be the same.